Sign the papers and leave. Your kind stains this family's name." The mother-in-law said it slowly, savoring every word while guests laughed behind crystal glasses. Zora stood there silent, stripped of dignity in a room she once called home. They thought they were ending her life with a signature. But they didn't know her brother, the quiet genius working overseas, had died unexpectedly, leaving her the empire he built in secret. A fortune that could crush the very family that belittled her. And the moment Zora discovered the truth, the divorce meant nothing. Because power had always been on her side, just waiting for her to claim it. Where are you watching from? Comment below and support the channel. Zola Vance paused at the foot of the marble stairs, her fingers brushing the cool banister as if the railing could steady her. She had been told this was an urgent family meeting. Thaddeus had sounded impatient on the phone, and his mother, Odelia Sterling, had sent a vague message about pressing matters concerning the health of the patriarch. That alone was enough to make Zola hurry back to the estate. She still cared for her father-in-law. She still cared for the version of her marriage that had once existed. But the moment she stepped into the grand hall, something felt wrong. Soft music drifted from hidden speakers. Silver balloons floated above the tables. Champagne glasses glimmered under the chandelier. This was not a family meeting. This looked like a celebration that did not include her. The guests were not relatives, but the Sterling inner circle, executives, wives, socialites who loved power more than friendship. Their chatter quieted as soon as they saw her. Zola caught the way a few women exchanged smirks, as if waiting for a performance. She steadied her breath and walked in. Her gaze found Odelia first. Odelia Sterling, the matriarch of the family, stood near the head of the table. She was dressed in ivory silk and pearls, her hair perfectly arranged. She had always treated Zola with a cold politeness that never hid the judgment underneath. Today, however, her smile was unnervingly bright. "Zola," Odelia said, spreading her arms as if greeting someone she adored. "How thoughtful of you to arrive on time. We were just about to begin." Zola looked around. The only face that mattered was missing. "Where's Thaddeus?" Her husband appeared from behind a group of guests, and she barely recognized him. Thaddeus Sterling, a man who once whispered promises to her on late nights in their tiny apartment, now carried himself like someone entitled to applause. His suit was perfectly tailored, his hair gelled just enough, his expression tired in a way that suggested boredom rather than stress. At his side stood Blythe Whitmore. Zola had seen her before at charity events. Blythe was exactly what the wealthy adored: polished, pale, graceful in a rehearsed way. She was touching Thaddeus's arm without hesitation, like someone who had done it many times. Zola felt her stomach churn. "Thaddeus, what is all this?" He avoided her eyes. "Let my mother explain." Odelia lifted a champagne flute. "Everyone, thank you for gathering. Tonight we celebrate my son's new beginning, his freedom, a fresh chapter." Zola stared, confused. "Freedom from what?" "From you, dear." Odelia's tone was honeyed, but her eyes hardened. "You've clung to this family long enough. You've been a burden, decorative inconvenience." A few guests chuckled. Someone clapped softly. Zola's breath hitched, but she forced herself not to shrink. "You called me here to humiliate me?" "To finalize things," Odelia corrected. "Frankly, it is overdue. This family deserves someone who matches its standards." Her gaze slid to Blythe, who smiled sweetly. Zola turned to Thaddeus, hoping, stupidly, for a hint of conflict in his expression. But he just looked tired, annoyed, as if she were the one causing trouble. "Thaddeus," she whispered, "please tell me this isn't what it looks like." He sighed, rubbing his forehead. "Zola, don't make this emotional. You know you never fit here. Look at you. Look at this place. Even the curtains outshine you." He gestured to the tall velvet drapes. "Just sign the papers. It's cleaner this way." The words sliced through her. Guests leaned in, hungry for drama. Blythe clutched Thaddeus's arm tighter, her voice soft but triumphant. "It's best for everyone, Zola." Odelia snapped her fingers, and a servant placed a folder on the table. "Divorce agreement, no property, no compensation. You leave with what you brought." Zola felt the pressure build behind her eyes, hot and unbearable. But she refused to let tears fall in front of these people. You arranged all this, she murmured, just to watch me sign. To ensure you don't cling to false hopes, Odelia said. Thaddeus deserves a partner worthy of his status. Zola looked at her husband one last time, the man she had supported through graduate school, the man she once believed in. Now he couldn't even meet her eyes. Her voice was quiet. Was I really so unworthy to you? His reply was a whisper of disdain. Let's not pretend this was ever equal. Something inside Zola cracked, but she held her chin high. She signed the papers with a hand that barely shook. The moment her pen lifted, the room erupted with cheers, as if she had just been eliminated from a competition. A champagne bottle popped loudly. The cork ricocheted across the table. Laughter followed. Odelia walked past her, dropping something at Zola's feet, a small, battered suitcase, the one Zola used before marriage. Take your things, Odelia said softly, and please leave before the smell settles. Zola swallowed hard. She gathered the suitcase, holding it close like a lifeline. The hall felt smaller with every step she took, but not a single person tried to stop her. Not even Thaddeus. When the heavy doors closed behind her, the cold night air hit her face like a slap. She stood alone on the steps of a home she had once believed would welcome her. And for the first time in years, she had nowhere to go. Rain clung to Zola's hair as she dragged the small suitcase along the sidewalk. The wheels scraped against the concrete, refusing to roll smoothly, but she didn't stop. She didn't have the strength to cry. The shock from the banquet still held her in a numb grip, making each step feel mechanical. She had walked for almost an hour before she spotted a faded neon sign buzzing weakly above a rundown motel. Its paint was peeling, and one of the letters flickered in and out. It was the only place that still had lights on, and the cold wind pushed her toward the entrance. Inside, a bored clerk sat behind the counter, tapping at his phone. He barely glanced up when she approached. One night, Zola said quietly, her voice cracking. He eyed her damp clothes and the old suitcase. Cash only. She handed him the last bill she had, $200. He slid a key toward her without a word. No sympathy, no curiosity. She was just another guest passing through misery. Her room was small and smelled faintly of mold. The carpet was stained and the bed sagged near the middle. She shut the door and leaned against it, finally letting her breath rush out. The silence pressed against her chest until she sank onto the edge of the bed. Her phone lay in her pocket, heavy with the weight of the only lifeline she had left. Malachi, her older brother, her anchor since childhood. The one person who could steady her through anything. She dialed his number with trembling fingers. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. Come on, Kai, she whispered. Please pick up. It went to voicemail. She tried again, then again. Each time, her desperation grew more painful. She pressed the phone to her forehead. I need you. I really need you. No answer came, only the hum of the rain hitting the window. Exhaustion dragged her down, and she curled up on the bed fully clothed. The tears finally arrived, quiet and relentless. She cried until sleep claimed her. When morning light crept into the room, she felt no better. Her eyes were swollen, her throat sore. She checked her phone. Still nothing from Malachi. A sharp knock startled her. She sat up quickly, fear prickling through her. Who is it? Miss Vance, a man's voice called. The name made her stiffen. Hardly anyone outside her marriage used it. She opened the door a few inches. A middle-aged man in a dark suit stood there holding a leather briefcase. His hair was silver at the temples, his face stern but not unkind. My name is Leonard Graves, he said. I am an attorney. May I come in? I have important news. Zola hesitated. If this is about the divorce, I'm not signing anything else. It is not about your husband, he replied calmly. It is about your brother. Her heart dropped. Malachi? Did something happen? I've been trying to call him. Leonard's eyes softened. I'm afraid I have very difficult news. Your brother passed away 3 days ago. A sudden stroke. The words hit her like a blow. She stumbled back, gripping the edge of the bed. No, she whispered. No, he couldn't have. I talked to him last week. He sounded fine. He promised he'd be careful with work. Leonard stepped forward slightly, his voice low. I am very sorry for your loss. Zola shook her head, unable to hold back the sob that tore out of her. She pressed her hands to her face, struggling to breathe as grief washed over her. Losing Thaddeus had hurt, but losing Malachi felt like losing the ground beneath her feet. He had been her protector, her confidant, her family. She forced herself to speak. Why didn't anyone call me sooner? He listed only my office as the emergency contact, Leonard explained. He preferred privacy, it seems, but he left instructions for me to find you immediately. He opened his briefcase and took out a sealed envelope and a tablet. Your brother left a will, and this, a video he recorded during his final days. Zola stared at the objects, her pulse thundering in her ears. What do you mean? He was a computer technician. He didn't have anything to leave. Leonard hesitated. Miss Vance, Malachi was not who you believed. Zola frowned. What are you talking about? Your brother was the founder of Ether Systems, Leonard said gently. He owned the patents that have changed the semiconductor industry. He kept his identity hidden to protect himself. And you. Her breath caught. That's impossible. Leonard handed her the tablet. He explains everything. Zola pressed play. Malachi appeared on the screen, tired but smiling. Hey, little sister, he said softly. If you're watching this, then I couldn't keep going. I'm sorry, I didn't tell you the truth because I didn't want anyone using you to get to me. But everything I built is yours now. You deserve the world, Zola. When life tries to crush you, remember what I'm telling you now. You were born to rise. Zola clutched the tablet to her chest as another wave of tears came. Leonard waited respectfully, giving her space. When she finally spoke, her voice trembled. Ether Systems, that company supplies chips to Sterling Group. Leonard nodded. Yes, and they are in severe debt. Your brother was aware. Zola blinked slowly as a realization settled in, sharp and sobering. Her life had been destroyed in 48 hours, and Malachi had handed her the power to rebuild it. The apartment Leonard arranged for Zola was quiet, tucked away on a high floor overlooking the city. It was nothing extravagant, just a temporary place for her to grieve. The first days blurred together. She barely left the couch. Her meals went untouched. Grief came in waves that left her breathless, her mind replaying Malachi's smile, his voice, the way he always called her, little star. Losing him felt like losing the world. But on the seventh morning, something changed. She woke up with Malachi's tablet beside her. The screen was black, yet she felt as though he were urging her forward. She sat up slowly, wiping her swollen eyes. She whispered, I'm trying, Kai. And she began. Leonard returned that afternoon with boxes of documents, passwords, and access codes. He served as her legal guide, explaining what Malachi had concealed for years. Zola listened, her grief folding into determination. So all this was his? She asked softly, staring at the folders labeled Ether Systems. Everything? Leonard nodded. He trusted you more than anyone. There was a warmth in his voice, but also respect. He had become an unexpected ally, patient and calm. He never pushed her, yet made sure she understood the magnitude of what she had inherited. Zola spent the next weeks learning the company's operations. She met with department heads through encrypted calls, using only her initials to keep her identity hidden. She asked questions, took meticulous notes, and absorbed every detail. The employees did not know who she was, only that the founder's successor was exacting and sharp. Still, she was terrified of making a wrong decision. One evening, as she stared at spreadsheets she didn't fully comprehend, she whispered to herself, what if I can't do this? Leonard, who had just arrived with more files, paused. Miss Vance, you are already doing it. You're learning faster than most executives I've worked with. She exhaled shakily. I'm not him. Malachi was a genius. And you, Leonard said gently, are his chosen heir. His certainty steadied her more than he knew. 3 months passed. Zola's appearance transformed almost without her noticing. Her hair was trimmed neatly, her posture straightened, and her clothing shifted from loose sweaters to tailored suits that matched her new authority. She wasn't trying to impress anyone. It simply felt right to stand tall now. She also hired a private investigator, Marcus Hale, a former cybersecurity analyst known for his precision. He was in his mid-30s, quiet, observant, and carried an air of someone who could see through people. When they met, he gave a small nod. Miss Vance, Leonard told me what you need. You want a full internal investigation of Sterling Group. Zola crossed her arms. I want the truth about what they've been doing behind closed doors. Marcus studied her for a moment. Is this about revenge? She paused, then shook her head. No, it's about clarity. I want to know the real reason they treated me like I was disposable. Marcus accepted that answer. Then I'll get you everything. And he did. Within weeks, he returned with a thick report. Zola sat at her desk with Leonard nearby as Marcus went through each finding. Thaddeus has been funneling company funds into a private account, Marcus explained. Gambling debts, expensive gifts, travel with his new partner. The words stung, but Zola kept her expression steady. Marcus continued. As for Odelia, she's been taking private loans to maintain the family's lifestyle. Many of them are borderline illegal. Zola let out a slow breath. So they weren't powerful. They were drowning. Leonard folded his hands. It seems Malachi knew. That is why he warned you indirectly in his message. Zola nodded. Her heart no longer felt heavy. It felt sharpened, focused. Thank you, Marcus, she said. I need one more thing from you. Marcus raised a brow. Name it. Monitor Sterling Group's communications. I want to know exactly how desperate they are. Marcus smiled faintly. You'll have updates daily. That same night, Zola sat alone in her apartment. The lights dimmed. She logged into Ether's management dashboard. With a single command, she initiated a controlled reduction of chip shipments to Sterling Group. Nothing drastic, only enough to confuse. Ether's identity remained hidden behind layers of corporate structure. To the world, the change looked like a routine supply chain issue. To Sterling, it would feel like suffocation. When she finished, she closed the laptop and whispered to Malachi's photograph beside her. I'm not destroying them. I'm forcing them to see who they truly are. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She froze, then answered. Thaddeus's voice crashed through the speaker. What did you do, Zola? Everything has gone wrong since you left. You poisoned my luck. Zola didn't say a word. He shouted again, angrier this time. Pick up the phone when I call you. Don't you dare ignore me. She ended the call quietly, blocked the number, and set the phone face down. For the first time in months, she felt calm. Not triumphant, just steady. She had begun hunting without making a sound. The charity auction glowed with warm lights and murmured conversation as luxury cars rolled up to the entrance. Photographers waited like hawks, flashing cameras whenever a notable figure stepped out. The event was a spectacle of wealth, carefully curated to impress donors and media. In the middle of this glamour, a black SUV stopped. The door opened, and Zola Vance stepped out. The gown she wore was sleek and obsidian, falling over her figure like liquid shadow. Her hair was elegantly pinned, revealing a pair of diamond earrings Malachi had given her years ago. Tonight was the first time she had worn them since his death. She felt him with her, steadying her heartbeat. A reporter recognized the insignia embroidered near the hem of her dress. Is that the logo of Ether Systems? Cameras began flashing rapidly. Another reporter called out, Are you the new chief executive everyone's whispering about? Zola didn't confirm, but she didn't deny it either. She simply walked forward, calm, composed, radiating a presence the crowd had not expected. Inside the hall, conversations dulled when she entered. Heads turned. People wondered who this striking woman was and why security treated her like a top priority guest. Across the room, Thaddeus Sterling froze with a champagne flute in hand. Blythe, clinging to his arm, turned to follow his gaze. Her smile faltered. Standing near them, Odelia Sterling stiffened, her fingers tightening around her clutch. She whispered sharply to Blythe, Who let her in? Blythe swallowed. She looks different. Odelia's eyes narrowed. She looks like trouble. Zola approached their table slowly, her expression unreadable. She hadn't planned on speaking to them, but their hostile stares invited confrontation. Odelia stepped forward, masking her fear with a brittle smile. Zola Vance, I didn't expect to see you in a place like this. Did you borrow a gown from someone generous? Zola met her gaze with quiet amusement. Bah, Odelia, I see your talent for backhanded greetings hasn't dulled. Odelia bristled. You are not on the guest list. I was invited, Zola replied plainly. But even if I hadn't been, I can walk into any room I wish. Blythe cleared her throat, forcing a small smile. Zola, you look, well. Her tone trembled. Zola tilted her head. Blythe, your hair color changed, I see. Something new to distract the cameras? A few nearby guests snickered. Blythe blushed, shrinking behind Odelia. Thaddeus finally approached, his posture stiff. Zola, this isn't the place for you. Don't create a scene. She studied him with a calm that made him uneasy. A scene? You think I would act like you did during that little celebration of yours? He flinched. You're twisting things. No, she said softly. You twisted everything long before that night. Odelia stepped between them. Enough. You are embarrassing yourself. On the contrary, Zola replied, I'm enjoying the evening. Just then, a respected investor approached the group. Miss Vance, may I say it is a privilege to finally meet the CEO of Ether Systems in person? The table went silent. Odelia blinked rapidly. Excuse me, CEO? What's CEO? Thaddeus stared at the investor as if he had misheard. What did you just say? The man extended his hand to Zola. Ether Systems has been invaluable to our research partners. The entire tech community is discussing your strategic restructuring. Zola shook his hand. Thank you. We are working hard to improve efficiency. Odelia's lips parted, shock washing over her elegant facade. You work for Ether? No. Zola's voice was steady. I lead it. Blythe's grip on Thaddeus tightened. Thad, she's joking, right? Zola smiled slightly. You never did bother learning what I was capable of. Why start now? Odelia stepped closer, her tone trembling with anger. You think wearing a pretty dress and flaunting a title scares me? Zola leaned in just enough for only Odelia to hear. It isn't fear I want from you. It is an acknowledgement. Something you were never capable of. Odelia recoiled as if slapped. Thaddeus raised his voice. Why are you here? To rub salt in our wounds? Everything has been falling apart since you left. Factories halting, shipments delayed, investors pulling back. Zola looked at him with a calm pity that made his jaw clench. I didn't come to talk about your misfortunes, she said. Those are consequences, not conversations. He tried to grab her wrist, but her bodyguard stepped between them instantly. Thaddeus stumbled back, embarrassed as onlookers watched. Zola's eyes held no warmth, no hatred, only clarity. You lost any claim to speak to me like that the night you threw me away. She turned and walked toward the stage as the host announced her name as an honored guest. Applause followed her steps. Behind her, Thaddeus murmured, What have we done? Odelia answered through clenched teeth, We underestimated her. And for the first time in their lives, the Sterling family felt small. The conference room inside Sterling Group's headquarters was unusually bright that morning. The long, polished table had been set with documents, water pitchers, and neatly arranged pens. Thaddeus Sterling paced at the far end, while Odelia adjusted her necklace every few seconds, unable to hide the tension tightening her shoulders. They had been waiting for this meeting for days. Ether Systems had finally agreed to negotiate terms that could save Sterling Group from collapse. What neither Thaddeus nor Odelia knew was that Zola had chosen not to attend in person, not yet. Instead, she watched from a private office in the same building, a floor above them. From behind tinted glass, she could see the entire boardroom through a live video feed set up by her legal team. Leonard Graves stood beside her, calm as ever. They think they're getting a lifeline, Zola murmured, her voice steady. Let's see how they react to the rope. Leonard nodded. The representative from Ether is ready. Downstairs, the boardroom door opened, and a woman in her 50s entered. She was tall, poised, and wore a charcoal suit. Her name was Clarissa Ward, Ether's senior counsel. She had been one of Malachi's earliest supporters and admired Zola's composure during the transition. Her role today was simple: present the contract and observe how Sterling Group responded. Odelia rose first, offering a strained smile. Miss Ward, thank you for coming. We appreciate Ether's willingness to assist in a challenging time. Clarissa took her seat without returning the smile. Ether Systems assists its partners when they demonstrate responsibility. That is why we are here. Thaddeus cleared his throat. We want to rebuild trust. All we ask is that Ether show good faith and continue supplying us. Our operations depend heavily on your chips. Clarissa opened her briefcase and slid a thick folder onto the table. Ether is willing to support Sterling Group, under conditions. Odelia snatched the folder before Thaddeus could. Her eyes skimmed the first page, and she forced herself to remain composed. 51% ownership to transfer to Ether? That is excessive. Clarissa's voice remained cool. It is proportional. Thaddeus leaned forward. Proportional to what? Your debt, Clarissa replied. Your operational losses, your offshore loans, and your misuse of company funds. Odelia's eyes widened. We do not misuse anything. The Sterling name carries history. Clarissa flipped to the next page. History is not currency. You owe suppliers, banks, and private lenders. If Ether injects capital, it must own the majority share. Thaddeus rubbed his jaw, trying to hide his panic. What about repayment terms? We can repay within the year. Clarissa looked at him with mild disbelief. You cannot. Your financial projections are unrealistic. This agreement is your only path to survival. Odelia swallowed hard. And what is this clause about veto power? Ether gets to approve all key management positions? Clarissa nodded. Yes, effective immediately upon signing. Zola watched them from her private room upstairs, her fingers lightly drumming on the armrest. They have no idea they're agreeing to hand me the company, she whispered. Leonard gave a faint smile. They believe they can outsmart Ether. They believe they can outsmart everyone, Zola replied. Back in the boardroom, Thaddeus flipped through the pages with growing anger. These conditions are harsh. You expect us to sign away everything? Clarissa leaned back in her chair. You called for help. This is help. Whether you accept it is your choice. Odelia's voice cracked despite her efforts to hide it. How soon do you expect an answer? Now, Clarissa said simply. Thaddeus stood abruptly. This feels like a trap. Clarissa didn't blink. Only for people who are hiding something. Silence fell like a weight. Odelia's gaze dropped to the table, her fingers trembling. Thaddeus clenched his teeth, glancing toward Blythe seated quietly behind him. She avoided eye contact, sensing the humiliation approaching. Odelia finally whispered, We will sign. Thaddeus hesitated. Mother, we have no choice, she snapped under her breath. We either swallow our pride or lose everything. With a resigned sigh, he took the pen. His hand shook slightly, but he forced the signature onto the page. Odelia followed with a stiff grip. Clarissa closed the folder calmly. Ether Systems appreciates your cooperation. You will receive instructions regarding Monday's restructuring meeting shortly. Thaddeus scoffed. Monday? Who will be running that meeting? Clarissa gave the smallest smile, holding his gaze a second too long. The new chairwoman of Ether Systems. Upstairs, Zola watched their confusion turn to dread. She whispered, I'll see you on Monday. Monday morning arrived with a quiet tension that crept through every hallway of Sterling Group's headquarters. The boardroom had been polished to perfection. Fresh flowers stood in tall vases, water glasses were filled, and every executive sat upright as if posture could erase months of chaos. Thaddeus Sterling adjusted his tie repeatedly. He had barely slept. Odelia sat beside him, her face powdered flawlessly, but her hands betrayed her. They trembled each time she reached for her pen. Do you think Ether will be harsh? Blythe whispered from behind them. She had insisted on attending, calling herself moral support. Odelia shot her a cold look. Be quiet. We need to appear composed. Thaddeus opened his notes. Whoever this chairwoman is, she had better understand that Sterling Group is not some rookie startup. We have history. Odelia nodded sharply. We will show her that the Sterling legacy deserves respect. The room fell silent when Ether Systems' legal team entered. Clarissa Ward led the group, her expression unreadable. She placed her briefcase on the table and gave a polite nod. Thank you for being on time, she said. The chairwoman will arrive shortly. Thaddeus leaned forward, attempting confidence. We would like to give a welcoming statement before she... He stopped when the double doors opened. Every head turned. Zola Vance stepped inside. Not the Zola they remembered. Not the quiet woman who used to avoid eye contact, who tucked her voice away like an apology. The woman standing before them radiated authority. Her suit was immaculate, tailored to perfection. Her presence filled the entire room. Thaddeus shot to his feet. What is she doing here? Odelia's breath caught. Her voice cracked. Clarissa, there must be a mistake. Why is she in this room? Clarissa closed her briefcase calmly. Allow me to introduce the new chairwoman of Ether Systems and the majority shareholder of Sterling Group, Ms. Zola Vance. The words sank slowly, painfully into the room. Blythe gasped. She owns us. Thaddeus took a step back as if something unseen had struck him. No, absolutely not. This is insane. Zola walked to the head of the table and sat down. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Please take your seats. We have much to cover. No one moved at first. The shock was paralyzing. Zola's gaze swept the table, steady and controlled. If you intend to remain employed by this company, I suggest you follow instructions. Odelia was the first to sit, though her face was drained of color. Thaddeus sat next, his jaw tight with disbelief. Zola opened a folder and clicked a remote. The screen behind her lit up with charts, financial statements, and flagged transactions. We will begin with an audit review, she announced. Sterling Group is facing severe structural issues caused by repeated mismanagement. Thaddeus slammed his hand against the table. You have no right to accuse us. Zola raised a brow. You signed the contract granting Ether full oversight. That was before we knew you were behind this, Odelia snapped. Zola met her gaze without blinking. Ignorance of my identity does not invalidate your signatures. A few executives shifted uncomfortably. Several avoided looking at Zola entirely. She clicked to the next slide. Here are the unauthorized withdrawals made by Thaddeus Sterling. Thaddeus instantly reddened. Those were business expenses. Zola tapped the next line. Private trips, gambling transfers, and gifts for Blythe Whitmore do not qualify as business expenses. The room broke into whispers. Blythe shrank in her seat, her cheeks burning. Moving on, Zola continued. Here are the illegal loans Odelia Sterling obtained under the company's name. Odelia's lips trembled. Those were temporary solutions. We planned to replace the funds. Zola folded her hands calmly. Your solutions nearly bankrupted the company. Thaddeus gritted his teeth, leaning toward her. Is this personal? Is this revenge? Zola's voice held no emotion. If it were personal, the two of you would not be sitting in this room. Clarissa looked impressed. A few board members nodded subtly, relieved someone was finally taking control. Zola moved to the final slide. As of today, Ether Systems appoints new leadership for Sterling Group. Effective immediately, Thaddeus Sterling and Odelia Sterling are relieved of their positions due to gross negligence. A stunned silence followed. Odelia touched her chest as if the air had been knocked out of her. You are dismissing us? Yes, Zola replied. Both of you. Thaddeus stood abruptly. You can't do this. You don't have the authority. Zola met his rage with icy calm. I have 51%. I have the authority. The door opened again. Two officers from the Economic Crime Unit stepped inside. The lead officer spoke clearly. Mr. Thaddeus Sterling, we have questions for you regarding financial misconduct. Odelia gasped. You called the authorities? Zola didn't look away. I submitted the files last week. Thaddeus's fury finally broke into desperation. Zola, please, you can't destroy me like this. She rose slowly from her seat. I didn't destroy you. You did. He stared at her, hollow and defeated, as the officers escorted him out. Zola turned back to the table, her expression composed. This meeting is adjourned. And for the first time in her life, every person in the room looked at her with respect, born not of fear, but recognition. The news spread much faster than Zola expected. By the end of the week, every financial paper, tech journal, and gossip site carried the same headline. Sterling Group under Ether Systems control, executives removed, founder's widow exposed as majority shareholder. For the first time in years, the world finally knew her name. What few people cared to report, however, was what happened to the Sterlings afterward. The old Sterling mansion, once the pride of their lineage, went into foreclosure. Workers carried furniture out under Odelia's horrified gaze. She stood on the porch, clutching her pearl necklace as if it were the last remnant of her dignity. What do you mean the bank is taking it? She demanded. This house is Sterling property. The officer present sighed softly. Ma'am, the debt is outstanding. You have been notified multiple times. Odelia glared at him, shaking. This is a mistake. My family has influence. My son, your son is under investigation, the officer reminded gently. Her face crumpled for a fleeting moment before she masked it with indignation. She stumbled down the steps, muttering curses under her breath. All of this because of that woman. That woman. No one responded. No one defended her. Blythe left before the foreclosure was complete. She packed her things and slipped away without a word, leaving Thaddeus behind. I can't be part of this, she told him in the visitation room. Your life is falling apart. Thaddeus grabbed the edge of the table. Blythe, please, don't leave me now. I need support. She shook her head. You need someone to clean up your mess, and that will never be me. When she walked out, he collapsed back into his chair, staring at the wall like he finally understood he was alone. Meanwhile, Zola's life looked nothing like theirs. Ether Systems thrived. Investors called constantly praising her leadership. Departments operated more smoothly than ever, and Clarissa often visited with updates. Your strategies are working, she told Zola. Your brother would be proud. The words warmed her. She still kept Malachi's tablet on her desk. The last frame of his video paused on his smile. When she felt overwhelmed, she touched the screen lightly. I'm still moving, Kai, she whispered. But Zola didn't take time to celebrate. Instead, she focused on building something new. On a bright morning, she met with Leonard and Marcus at a small community center downtown. Children ran through the halls, laughing, their sneakers squeaking against the floor. Zola felt an unexpected swell of emotion as she watched them. This is the place? Marcus asked, glancing around. Yes, Zola said. I want the scholarship program based here. Malachi always talked about wanting kids like us to have chances we didn't. Leonard nodded approvingly. We can finalize the paperwork by next week. Zola smiled softly. Call it the Malachi Vance Initiative for Future Engineers. Marcus grinned. He would have liked that. She exhaled slowly, the weight of grief easing bit by bit. Later that afternoon, Zola sat alone in a small cafe tucked into a quiet street. She chose a window seat, sipping warm tea while reading a book she had been meaning to finish. For once, her mind wasn't filled with strategies or numbers or the echo of her past. She simply existed. The bell above the door chimed. Footsteps paused near her table. Zola looked up. Thaddeus stood outside the window, staring in from the sidewalk. His suit was wrinkled, his hair unkempt. There were dark circles beneath his eyes. He raised a hand as if unsure whether to knock on the glass. His lips parted, forming words she couldn't hear. For a moment, she saw the man he used to be, the boy she once loved, the one who held her close on their wedding night and promised, we'll build something together. But that boy had vanished long before the divorce papers. Zola closed her book gently and set it beside her cup. Thaddeus took a tentative step forward, as if hoping she would open the door, invite him in, and offer forgiveness. She didn't. Her gaze held no hatred, no anger, only a final, quiet acceptance. She turned back to her tea, flipping to the next page of her book. Outside, Thaddeus stood frozen for a few seconds, then lowered his hand and walked away, swallowed by the crowd. Zola didn't watch him leave. She didn't need to. Her life was no longer tied to the ruins he stood in. She had risen beyond them. And as sunlight spilled across her table, warm and soft, she felt the truth settle deep within her. This was her dawn, her freedom, her future, and she was finally ready to live it. Thank you for staying with this story until the end. Zola's journey reminds us that dignity, courage, and quiet resilience can rebuild a shattered life. I'd love to hear your thoughts. What moved you most? Share your feelings below and let's continue this conversation. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next story.